The horror genre is, on the whole, one that I generally like to avoid. Not just with games, but with any form of media. This is due to the fact that I am a complete sissy. Like, A Quiet Place is barely passable, and anything more is just a hard pass for me. But oftentimes, a movie or game will have some elements that are scary, despite technically not being considered horror. And oftentimes, despite not being considered horror, I feel like it should be considered horror. So, here are some games that I think fit that category. While this list is technically not in any particular order, I am covering the least scary one first. Jedi Fallen Order is one of my favorite games of all time, let alone favorite Star Wars games. And though this Metroidvania-style dungeon crawler isn't often scary, it does have a couple moments that had me freaking out, like walking down a dark hallway only illuminated by my lightsaber, or just minding your own business and all of a sudden there's a spider the size of a minivan on top of you. Or, who could forget that heart-stopping moment when you realize that Darth Vader doesn't have a health bar, and all you can do is run. But, in general, the scariest thing about this game is how hot my poor laptop gets trying to run it. The Zelda franchise as a whole is considered to be on the more family-friendly side of gaming, but these games do tend to have a few moments that are a bit out of pocket. But out of the whole series, one game is a standout in this regard. Majora's Mask. From the literal ghosts everywhere, and I'm not just talking about the pose, but the actual ghost, to the giant frickin' moon face that's constantly looming overhead. This game was traumatizing to many young kids. Honestly, I almost didn't include this game due to how well known and talked about the creepy elements are, but I feel the list would be incomplete without this entry. Portal is considered to be one of the greatest puzzle games of all time. Everything about the game was, and still is to this day, very unique, from its brain-melting mechanics to its eerie atmosphere. And a massive contributor to that atmosphere is the isolation. In the first Portal game, there are only two characters, the player, otherwise known as Shell, and GLaDOS, the antagonistic AI who runs the tests you are participating in. At the end of the game, when GLaDOS is done with Shell, she attempts to kill her, but being the resilient human she is, Shell survives and has to navigate through the underbelly of Aperture Laboratory. In this section, the player is completely alone, and the only help they get is from cryptic messages painted on the walls by someone who's obviously not mentally stable. And the game can create tension based off of what it already taught you. For instance, finding the room with several deactivated turrets will make you freak out at first, and then you move on, but more alert now. Portal 2 also has some elements that fit, but not as many and not as well. Wheatley scares me quite a bit, but not in a boo, jump scare kind of way. More of a absolute moron in complete power, oh my gosh, he's gonna kill me, isn't he? way. The Stanley Parable also does a very good job of creating a feeling of isolation, with there again being only two characters, the player character, Stanley, and the narrator. Well, technically speaking, Stanley and the player are separate characters, but if we get too much into that, we'd get in a whole discussion about the meaning of the game, and we don't have time for that. But the isolation creates this very creepy atmosphere, despite the fact that I know for a fact nothing can attack me. But the game can become downright scary, especially in endings where the game begins to degrade and the lighting gets darker. You might be thinking, what do you mean Minecraft is horror? Isn't it like for little kids? Yes, Minecraft is a game loved by all ages, but it is freaking terrifying. The cave noises, the zombies, the baby zombies, the skeletons riding spiders, the creepers, and don't even get me started about Herobrine. Everything in this game wants to kill you, and if you're not careful, it will sneak up behind you and scare the pants off of you. The difference with Minecraft, though, is that the horror elements can be completely avoided if you prepare properly. But even then, something will spawn in the one area you didn't get lit properly and explode your wheat farm. Yet another game that seems like it should be fun for kids. But Pokemon has its creepy moments, from Lavender Town to the Ghost Girl. But the Alola games have something that is not only the most overtly creepy moment, but also one that is required by the story, the Ghost-type trial. In the Alola games, there aren't any gym leaders. Instead, there are trials, in which you fight a gigantic version of a Pokemon after performing some sort of task, usually fighting a couple other smaller Pokemon. The Ghost-type trial has you enter an abandoned supermarket and wander around until you see something shake. You turn on your camera and you see in the corner of your eye a Ghost-type Pokemon. You do this a couple times until you reach the back room. When you enter, your camera turns on without you telling it to, and you look behind you, and you're attacked by a totem Mimikyu. It just gives me the chills just thinking about it. Also, Mimikyu in general is just really creepy. Alongside being ridiculously hard, Star Wars Republic Commando can be pretty scary at times. Geonosians and other enemies can sneak up on you, and there's something quite horrifying about seeing a crab droid for the first time. Especially the sections where you turn on your night vision, or the sections where you have to sneak through enemy territory and try not to wake super battle droids. Despite being a game about a massive haunted mansion, Luigi's Mansion is not generally considered to be a scary game, which I feel doesn't give the game enough credit. The game is perfected keeping a spooky atmosphere, and there are some sequences that I legitimately think are a little scary. Oftentimes, I will be really nervous going into a boss, not because I believe it will be particularly difficult, but because I know I'm going to have to fight a ghost, and ghosts are scary. On the whole, this is not a scary game. But the level based off of the episode Legacy of Terror is legitimately horrifying. Most of the other entries on this list are, ooh, it's a little spooky, but this level and its corresponding episode of the show fill me with dread. This is some crap out of Alien or something. How did this get greenlit as a kid's game? Before I finish off, honorable mention Metroid Dread. It's not out yet, but when it does come out, I can guarantee that I'm going to be screaming in terror as I run away from Emmys. Now, I know you might think this is a weird entry, and yes, it is a very weird entry. In fact, I believe this is the only entry on the list that is unintentionally scary. But the city level is just so creepy. It's weird, there's like monsters everywhere, and the sky is pitch black, and it's just, why? Why does this game exist? Why is it this bad? This is the worst racing game of all time. Just don't bother with it. Thank you for watching. This was a lot of fun to make. And it's also kind of an editing challenge for someone who's as new to editing as I am. If you feel like I missed any games that should have been on the list, or if you have a different idea for a video I should make, go let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you think. Have a good day, I guess.